Hello, we are going to continue with the history of the ancient Greece. We were learning about the classic era, and we are going to take it from the Greco-Persian Wars. Although we already have seen this in class, we are going to make a quick summary. Okay, the Greco-Persian Wars confronted the Persian Empire here in the east. It was a huge empire who covered a big part of Central Asia and Asia Minor. Well, they were moving west and they were fighting some of these Greek cities in purple. So the Greeks decided to fight back, and that's how the war started. That was the reason of the war. Well, there were two wars. The first war took place in 490 before Christ and ended with the Battle of Marathon in 490. Okay, the Greeks defeated the Persians in the Battle of Marathon. Now, 10 years later, the Persians attacked again, and they were defeated again by the Greeks. The war took place in 480, the second war in 480 and 479 before Christ, and the main battles were the Salamina battle, the Battle of Salamin. It was a naval battle, and the Battle of Platea in 479. And the Greeks won again, and that was a huge victory because the Persian Empire was something really remarkable. So Athens became very powerful after this war, the city of Athens, or the polis of Athens. Well, what you have to do here is to complete this table, this chart about the Greco-Persian Wars. So first, you have to tell me who were the warring countries, who fought, the chronology, the dates, the place where everything happened. The casus belli means the reason of the war, why the war happened, or the cause of the war. Result, who won important battles that I already told you. The main data about the Greco-Persian Wars. Well, as I told you, Athens became the prevalent polis in Greece. And in Athens, there was this ruler called Pericles, who was the main promoter of democracy. We read the other day a text written by him about his conception of democracy. He thought that every free man in Athens should have a participation in politics and should have the right to elect their representatives, which is basically the foundations of democracy that we have today, right? Although in Greece, there were some people excluded, mainly the women. Women were excluded from politics. They were not considered to be citizens. Neither were the foreigners or the slaves. So here is what Pericles did. He built on the Mount Acropolis a set of buildings and temples that you all have seen, the Parthenon and the Erechtheion Temple, in order to celebrate the glory and the power of Athens. Okay, so this video here shows you how it was at that time in the 5th century before Christ. That is the statue of the goddess Athena, dressed as a warrior, because as you know, she was the goddess of wisdom, but also the goddess of war. And you can see the city of Athens at the background over there, right? Well, this is the Acropolis in an aerial view with all the temples and everything, how it looked like at that time. And this is the Acropolis today. This is an aerial view of the Acropolis, and that is how it looks today and in the past. So today we have ruins, but still is quite well preserved, keeping in mind that it has been invaded and destroyed by different cultures. They have been through a lot, okay? So what we are going to see right now is the main temple, which is the Parthenon, right there to the right. Well, this is the Erechtheion with this column with women shaped, and this is the inside of the Parthenon with that big statue of the goddess Athena. It was built in gold and ivory, so you can imagine how rich and powerful these people were. This is the scheme of the Parthenon. And this is the outside. So all these set of buildings were located on top of a mount. The mount was called Acropolis, and it was in the middle of the city of Athens. You see? That is the Acropolis right there in the middle of the city. Okay, then. So Pericles became very important, but there was a different concept of politics here that I want you to realize. Look, in Egypt, for example, 900 years before, the pharaohs, the kings of Egypt were treated as gods. That's why this representation of the pharaoh Tutankhamun is everything covered with gold, with all these ornaments and all these attributes and symbols that became to the god Osiris, now are held by the pharaoh. So he was considered to be basically a god on earth. But now Pericles, on the other hand, if you see this representation, well, he looks like a determined guy. You can see this determination in his look, but still, he was just a warrior and a citizen. Okay, and he was considered to be a good warrior and a good citizen, and he was elected to be representative of the Athenians in a democratic system, but just a citizen. So it's a complete different concept of a ruler. That is what I want you to realize. This is a modern conception as of a ruler. This is a conception similar to the one we have today. Okay, the ruler is just a citizen. The president, the prime minister, is just a citizen that has been elected by the people to be their representative. All right, then, another war that happened during the classic era was the Peloponnesian War. Peloponnesian because it took place, or several battles took place in the Peloponnesus, which is this area that I am surrounding in the south of Greece, in the south of Greece. Well, the Peloponnesian War confronted the city of Athens against the city of Sparta, the polis of Athens against the polis of Sparta. Well, Athens became very powerful, and the Spartan became, let's say, jealous, and they didn't trust the Athenians. They thought they were accumulating too much power, so eventually they went to war. Athenian and its allies and their friends formed the Delian League, led by Athens, and the Spartans did the same thing. They formed with their friends and allies the Peloponnesian League. So eventually it was the Delian League against the Peloponnesian League. The Delian League was led by Athens, and the Peloponnesian League was led by Sparta. This war was very long. It lasted almost 30 years, okay, and it ended with the Battle of Egopostami in 405 before Christ. Here is Egopostami, or Egospotamos, as we say in Spanish. And in this battle, it was a naval battle, it was a sea battle. The Spartan navy defeated completely the Athenian navy. So Sparta won the war, but the bottom line is that both cities, after such a long war, were very, very weak. So they couldn't stand for long. Well, I want you to complete also this chart about this Peloponnesian War. You have to do exactly the same thing as you have done with the Greco-Persian War. War in countries, or in this case, war in polis. The chronology, which is the day, the place where everything happened, casus belli, the reason why they went to war, result, who won, and the important battle, because there was just one which was the ultimate battle. So if you name that one, that would be enough. That is the homework you have to do, okay? These tables, these charts about the Greco-Persian Wars and the Peloponnesian Wars. All right, well, the bottom line is the polis were not able to live together, to live in peace. They joined forces against the Persians, but after that, they fought each other. They were always arguing. They didn't get along well, and they couldn't stand. Unfortunately, because they were powerful, but since they were always fighting, eventually they destroyed each other. Well, this was this was the end of the classical era, and we are going to enter the Hellenistic era, which is the last one in the history of ancient Greece. It starts on 336 with the crowning of Alexander the Great, which was the king of Macedonia. Alexander the Great is known in Spanish as Alejandro Magno, so maybe it sounds kind of familiar to you. And it ended in 31st BC with the death of Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra was queen of Egypt, and probably you're wondering why there is a queen of Egypt here if we are talking about Greece, but you are going to know the reason right away. Well, this is what happened. As I told you before, Athens was very weak, and Sparta, which was here, was very weak after the Peloponnesian Wars. Well, the king of Macedonia was the north of Greece, was by the north of Greece. The king of Macedonia took advantage of that situation and invaded the whole country. The king of Macedonia by that time was Philip II. So he created an unified kingdom of Macedonia all over the territory of the Hellas, or all over the territory of Greece, which is the same. The Hellas, Greece, it's the same thing. Now, his son was this guy here, Alexander the Great, Alejandro Magno. So he decided to continue the war conquering new lands. So he moved to Asia Minor and he conquered all Asia Minor, and then he moved to Palestine all the way south to Egypt, and then he became the pharaoh of Egypt, and he founded the city of Alexandria, or Alejandria, probably you have heard about it. And then he went back on his feet, and then he entered Mesopotamia and Babylon, and he conquered all the lands in between, and then he went south to the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire was really powerful and rich, and he destroyed the capital city, which was Persepolis. He took the treasure of Persepolis and he became the king of Persia. So he basically wanted to expand the Greek culture and the Greek civilization all over Asia. So he got a lot, but he decided to continue. He moved north to the kingdom of Media. He conquered. He kept on fighting wars, and he won every single battle. He kept on fighting, and he conquered new lands. And when he got to the Indian civilization, who was over here by the Indus Valley, if you remember the Indian civilization, well, he also fought some battles over here, but eventually his men, his soldiers, his army told him to stop, because they were really tired of fighting war after war for so many years. Basically, it took like around 11 years for Alexander the Great to get his huge empire, which is very little time. Actually, it's very little time. But the soldiers were really tired. They were fed up of war and fighting, and they said, "Hey, we are your men, your army, and that you are this big guy, this big emperor, pharaoh of Egypt, king of Persia, king of Macedonia, emperor of all this Alexandrian empire. But we really want to go home. We are really tired and we are exhausted, and I think you should consider to start our way back home." Eventually, Alexander said, okay, and they started going back home by the south of Persia. And they were going back, but eventually when they got over here near Babylon, Alexander became very ill and he died. He died of fever, which was a huge problem because he didn't have any child. He didn't have any heir to be the next king. So since there was no descendant, his generals decided to share or to divide the Alexandrian Empire among them. So the general Cassandro took over Greece, Lysimaco took over this place which they call Thracia, the general Antigono took over Asia Minor over here, Seleuco took the biggest piece of the cake, which was the Persian Empire, and Ptolemy, the general Ptolemy, took over Egypt. And Cleopatra was a descendant of Ptolemy. So that's why she had to do a lot with Greece. Actually, her native language was Greek language, not Egyptian. Although she was very smart and she learned all this hieroglyphic thing and everything, but basically she had Greek origins and she spoke Greek language. Well, that's the end of the Alexandrian Empire, and now we are going to skip like 300 years in time, and we are going to learn something about the Battle of Corinth, because that was the end of Greece as an independent country. Look, Greece is over here, right? This is Greece. This is the original place for Greece. Well, eventually by year 146, they became weak, and the Romans invaded Greece. Okay, Rome was a republic. It was not an empire yet. It was a republic. But here you can see the Roman army led by his very proud general entering the city of Corinth, which has been destroyed. You can see the smoke and everything. People dead on the ground, and some other people desperate here. They are really afraid of the Romans. They are praising the goddess Athena, because in the past the goddess helped them, but this time she didn't help. So the Romans took over Greece, and Greece was under the control of Rome from this year on. But not only this, I told you before that Egypt was a Greek kingdom too, because it was in the hands of the Ptolemean dynasty. Where here is what happens. Here is what happened. By 31st BC, so we have skipped like 115 years in time, Rome, the city of Rome, or the Roman Republic, was ruled by three people, by three guys. Okay, one of them was Lepidus, another one was Octavius, and another one was Mark Antony. So Lepidus, Octavius, and Mark Antony. Well, Lepidus was very quickly put aside by Octavius in Rome, so he got over, and we don't have to worry about him anymore. So right now we have two leaders, Octavius and Mark Antony. It happened that Mark Antony went to Egypt, and there he met the Queen Cleopatra. They fell in love with each other, and they started this relationship, and they decided to join their armies. So there was an Egyptian/Roman army who tried to take over some territories in Asia. Now, in Rome, it was Octavius, and Octavius was afraid that maybe Mark Antony, with this Egyptian-Roman army, became too much powerful, and he could overshadow him. So he decided to attack Mark Antony, because Octavius wanted to be the one and only leader of the Roman Republic. So he accused Mark Antony of being a traitor. He said that Mark Antony was selling Rome to the Egyptians and all kind of things. And eventually they went to war. This red arrow is the route of Octavius, and the green arrow is the route of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. So Octavius came all the way from Rome to the sea, and here in front of the city of Actium, there was a naval battle. This green arrow is Mark Antony and Cleopatra coming from Egypt, and here is where they fought, in the sea in front of the city of Actium. Octavius won the battle, and Mark Antony and Cleopatra were completely defeated. Okay, so Octavius became the greatest leader of the Roman Republic, and 2 years after the Battle of Actium in 29 BC, he became the emperor. So we can say that Octavius was the very last leader of the Roman Republic and the very first emperor of the Roman Empire. And on the other hand, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, they decided to kill themselves after this defeat. Well, then that is basically the end of the Hellenistic era and the end of the history of the politic history of the ancient Greece. These questions are related to the Hellenistic era. You don't have to do them as homework. We are going to work with them in class. But still, if you want to go through them, if you want to write them down in your notebook, or if you want to work on them and do them, that would be fantastic. So be my guest. But still, we are going to work with this in the class. So that's basically it. I hope you liked this video, and I hope everything is clear and understood. If you have any question, you have my email. Let me know any question, any doubt, or anything that is not clear for you. If you have any difficulty doing your homework, but please do not wait until the very last minute, because that would be a problem, and maybe I will not be able to help you. So that's it. I will see you in class on Tuesday. So goodbye and have a good weekend.